Okay. Sorry, something just popped up on my screen. Okay. Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. Before we start, we'll do the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the ground on which we live is the traditional territory of the Caldwell First Nation of the Three Fires Confederacy and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and whom have embraced the stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge the contributions of other nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. We'll have a moment of silent reflection and then we'll stand for O Canada. Thank you. Members of council, you've seen the items on the agenda. Is there any conflict of interest? Seeing none, adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held October 26, 2021 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Dicho Spagnolo and second by Councillor Mark Carrick. All in favor? That passes. Thank you. Mayor's comments. I don't have anything other than remind everyone, remember today's Thursday, 11 o'clock. At the Cenotaph. Everyone is welcome, but please, if you are attending, wear a mask, even outdoors. Thank you. Okay, first item on the agenda, E1, Forest Trail Estate Subdivision, amending agreement and land transfer. I believe, do we have Cindy Prince from appearing on Zoom if needed? I show she's a delegate. I see her there as a guest. Okay, thank you. Hi, Cindy.
Good evening.
Long time no see.
Yeah, I hope everyone's well.
Yes, thank you. And looks like this is finally coming to fruition. You're going to get develop this.
Yeah, with much assistance from your administration. Yes.
Larry's not bad and his team. Okay, Mr. Solani, you want to go first?
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. I'll just briefly summarize the contents of our report. A request was received earlier this year from the Amical Group with respect to the Forest Trails Estate subdivision. This subdivision was approved several years ago, and the first number of phases up to 3B have been developed and homes have been constructed. The owners have a subsequent phase, the last phase there, but it requires some additional work to be done on drainage matters before they can proceed to service and build on that last phase. However, there is provisions in the subdivision agreement that allow Amical Group to do SARS, species at risk compensation on lands that were donated to the town for natural heritage purposes. And in the report, you'll see the map that shows approximately 12 hectares of land that was donated for that purpose as part of those earlier approvals. The Amico Group would like to do some SARS restoration for a project that they are obtaining approval for in the adjacent municipality. The province has agreed to that, and town administration, engineering, and planning have reviewed it, and we're satisfied that this would be appropriate at this location. And you'll see the report from GEI, their environmental consultant, that provides some detail as to what that will entail. We've also identified in the report what the conditions are for that work to be done on this site. And it's important to note that the town will get an important vital link, the completion of the trail system from the eastern part of LaSalle right through this area and over to the town center. There's a missing link in between, and this will complete that. So we're certainly happy to see that happen. And you see in the report here, there was 4 or 5 conditions, and Cindy Prince, on behalf of Amico has agreed to those conditions. So if council concurs, the next step would be to authorize the solicitor for the town, Mr. Dedault, to amend the agreement. There's an agreement that requires the language to be amended, and to prepare the transfer document to allow deepening of the lots. There's a piece of surplus land there that can be returned back to the developer to deepen the lots that are in the remaining phase. So that in essence is the request and the staff recommendation. And I'm available if any members of council have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Solani. Ms. Prince, is there anything you want to add that's not in the report?
No, the only, thank you. I think Larry has done a very thorough job of outlining the proposal. I think the only thing that maybe will resonate with council is that anytime a developer takes land that could be considered habitat and develops it, they have to compensate. And so we have a development in the abutting municipality, and rather than giving all of the compensation to that municipality, this is an opportunity for us to give back a little bit to LaSalle and get that trail system built sooner than later. I think it's a real win-win. And as you all know, my boss always, he's got a soft place in his heart for LaSalle. And so if we were going to be doing all of this compensation, he wanted some of it to go in the town of LaSalle. So very much appreciate administration's assistance with getting the details worked out.
Thank you. Council's pleasure. Councilor DeJarve. Move the recommendation. Support. Councilor Renault. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, Councilor Ekpata.
All I wanted to say, Your Worship, is appreciate the work that's gone into this. I went and looked myself to make sure that I understood where we were going to go. And as Mr. Solani said, the completion of the missing link is important to our municipality and what we do here to inspire our folks to be healthy. So, Ms. Prince, thank you very much for the work that's gone in, and to Mr. Solani and his team, can't congratulate them enough.
Thank you, Councilor Ekpata. And just a comment, we thank Mr. Amiconi for development. We like development. It helps us in keeping our tax base low. And you'll have 2 projects to go now, this one and the one on your own church.
Yeah.
We'll see which one comes up first. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Solani. Thank you, Ms. Prince.
Thank you.
Legacy Oak Public Trail School
Mayor.
bylaw.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
think we have to call the vote.
I did not vote. Well, there you go. I'm sorry, I thought it was unanimous. All in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. I guess I was so excited about the project, I just forgot about the voting. Legacy Oak Trail Public School bylaw update. Mr. Beggs, is it? There he is.
Good evening, members of council. The report tonight is a little bit of a housekeeping report with the new public school that was built over on Leptis magna, legacy oak. So basically, back in 2021, we put a bylaw in place for reducing the speed at each of the schools. And what this bylaw does is remove the Prince Andrew Public School, as it's no longer being used as a school with active students and buses. It's being used as a virtual school at present time. And the new school, we would add the same signage that we have done in the other locations. And I'm available for any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Beggs. Council's pleasure. Moved by Deputy Mayor Malash, supported by Councilor Carrick. Discussion on the motion. Deputy Mayor Malash.
Thank you very much for bringing this forward. I did have a couple residents who did inquire about the speed limit over where Prince Andrew used to be. So thank you for taking care of this and kind of getting everything back in place. With the new school, my only question is, are there any speed reductions on the side that the environmental services building is?
We weren't going to do anything there, as the main entrance to the school is off of Leptis Magna. I do know that the Kiss and Ride lineup basically starts on Judy Recker. So I think it makes sense to just have the speed limit on the Leptis Magna, as that road I believe will extend out further in the future, and then that will make the speed limit make more sense. Right now, as it's a dead end, we're kind of just getting the signage up so it's there, but it doesn't go anywhere at the moment. So it's more for in the future when that road does connect through.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Malash. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Beggs. Tree maintenance policy, you're up again.
So this policy before you tonight is a policy we have been working on for a while. It has been in action, I guess, in the Public Works Department for a couple of years. So we did get a chance to kind of try it out before it got formally approved here tonight. But I did just want to go through a few points of it, just to explain it, and obviously I'd be available for questions after. Each year we work on about 300 tree requests that come in. So trees are a fairly significant part of the Public Works Department in both the roads and the parks areas. And a significant amount of money is spent each year on tree maintenance and tree replacement. One thing I did want to clarify with this particular policy, this one is specific for maintenance, and we will be bringing a further report forward next year with a full tree replacement policy. So the spirit of this policy is that we do not take down trees that are healthy. That's been a rule that we've had for a long time in LaSalle, and we like to stick with that. So if the tree is not sick in some way or need to come down for safety reasons, we will strive to keep them up. And when we do take down trees, as part of this policy, we would replace those trees that we take down where possible. But as I said, this doesn't address planting extra trees above and beyond what we are taking down. We did work on this policy with the legal department for some guidance on a few points of it. And one of the main points to realize is that it points out that if the tree is at all on the town's property, we are taking responsibility for that tree. And in the past couple of years, we have been treating trees that way. And it seems that at least we have a little bit of a black and white answer to the question of who is responsible for that tree, because we do have a lot of trees that are basically right on the property lines. So we're taking the advice from legal and from other municipalities that have been doing this as well, that if a tree is at all on the town's property, that we are going to deal with it and take the cost of the maintenance. The other part that is a big piece of this policy is the idea of bringing in a certified arborist if we get into a situation where it's not clear what to do with a tree, or we need a third party to kind of decide if the tree is healthy or not healthy. And we have been doing that as well with success. And it is nice to take that burden off of our guys in the field, and we can go to the certified arborist to say, is the tree healthy or not healthy? And should we keep it or take it down or trim it or other options? The other part of this policy that's important is we're always there to help the residents if a branch does come down in a storm onto their front yard, or it's on their driveway, even if it's on private property. Our practice has always been to go help out, push it out of the way with the loader, and make sure that they can get in and out of their house or that kind of thing. What we are trying to get away from is dragging trees off of cars or off of private property. So we're still there to help where we can. We just don't want to put ourselves in risk with liability and making things almost worse if we damage things further when trees are pulled off of homes and that kind of thing. So that's where using a contractor comes into play. So I think with that, if there are any other questions, I'm certainly available for those.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Reno, then Deputy Mayor Melange.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had the advantage of being able to attend FCM virtually last year, and one of the sessions I sat in on was tree maintenance, and because that's something that I never sat in on before. And they talked about something that we employ in our municipality quite a bit in the last 10 years, and that's street trees. And they had suggested that, when you've got these street trees, you should have a regular maintenance program that's proactive as opposed to reactive. I appreciate everything that's in this report and this policy, but it seems very reactionary to me. And I'm wondering if there's anything we can do. It was suggested that, if trees were touched or trimmed once every 5 or 6 years, it would keep them healthy, as opposed to being reactionary when you get a bad section in it 20 years later, and then it's beyond help and you have to take the tree out. Has there been any kind of discussion of taking care of these, if nothing else, the street trees that we've been putting in like crazy for the last 10 years?
Yeah, that's a great point. So we didn't include anything specifically in the policy, but on an annual basis, our roads and parks department do have a rotationary schedule of making it around to the street trees. We probably need to up that a little bit on some of the newer subdivisions where traditionally those trees are fairly new and we haven't had to do a whole lot with them, but we do acknowledge that we do need to do more of that going forward. But annually, our roads department with the bucket truck, it's typically done in the winter time. We make a tour of the streets and we do our trimming. And if there's anything that is out of the ordinary, we would get our arborist in there to take a peek at it and see what that looks like. And as well with the street trees that are newer, that is something that we've got in our plans to increase as a winter project with our current crews.
Okay, and I can appreciate that something like that will be tied to budget, which is something we probably haven't looked at for this year's budget, but it would be nice to see a plan come forward, maybe with some mapping and things like that of how we're going to do this sometime in the new year.
Okay.
We done?
Yep. Reno, Deputy Mayor Melange.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Just a quick question. I don't know if this is maybe more of a housekeeping item we should consider. It says that the policy describes that if any part of a tree is on a town-owned property, that it seems very vague. I don't know if should we be more specific to that? Because, if there's branches hanging over onto the town property, or if the roots stretch out to our property, where do we say what is on the property that we're going to take care of it?
So that language refers to the trunk of the tree, which maybe we can review that a bit before it's it's published with legal, but from the way it's written there, it means the trunk of the tree on the property. Whether or not a branch leans over, that happens all the time, but it refers to the trunk.
Thank you very much. I just know sometimes we get those questions from residents who say, well, the roots stretch out across your property, and, just clarification is always good. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Any other questions from council? I have one. Mark, our rule of thumb is, to put it simply, if it's a healthy tree, we're not touching it. Is that correct? If an arborist deems it should go down, we will take it down if it's on our property.
That's correct. Exactly. Yep.
And thank you for the graph. I like that, how you have that procedure step by step. Looks good. Okay, council's pleasure. Moved by Councilor Adiccio Spagnolo, support Deputy Mayor Malash. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Hey, we have a item we added, correspondence regarding COVID-19 testing requirement at land border. So the recommendation is that the corporation of the town of LaSalle requests that the federal government remove the requirement for Canadian travelers to be tested for COVID-19 when using a land border crossing into the United States and then returning to Canada after November 8th, 2021 reopening. And I should acknowledge Mr. O'Neill, who sent us some correspondence in relation to that. Council's pleasure. Councilor Renaud, you have a question? Okay.
No, I'll move to approve.
Okay. Move to approve, support?
Or
Councilor Carrick, all in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. We have the bylaw committee, Deputy Mayor Malash. Oh, did you have a question? Sorry.
I did, just quick question. Where does that go to? When we say we're sending this off, where does that go to?
Mr. Militia. Oh, or Jennifer, whoever. Jennifer?
Certainly. What we will do is we will forward that correspondence to the federal government, who is responsible for establishing these types of rules.
Now, I know other municipalities are doing the same thing. Is it something we should be sending to other municipalities in the county as well to get as many people on board as possible, since this is something that affects our region?
Yeah, we would circulate it to, we can certainly circulate it to our sister municipalities and across the province if that is what council desires.
I would, Mayor Bonnie, if I could make an amendment to that, I would really like to see us do what we can, because I do believe that now's the time for us to try to help all border communities, not just Windsor-Essex County, but many others who are in the same boat as us.
Okay, Jennifer, since we voted on this, would that have to be a new motion?
It certainly would. Yes, it would have to be a new motion, but we can just circulate it. We know what council wants. We can just circulate it to all Ontario municipalities and include that in our correspondence.
Okay, so the motion is moved by Crystal Malash that the rest of local municipalities in the province are notified. Support by Councillor Renaud. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Thank you for clarification, Jennifer. Okay, Crystal, bylaw committee meeting minutes of October 19th.
Nothing really new to discuss on that unless anyone has any specific questions.
No questions. Detailed report. I'm sorry, Councillor Renaud.
No, I just wanted to thank the committee and administration for keeping their eyes on the urban chicken issue. There just seems to be a lot of passion about chickens in our community, and I look forward to that to come to report in the new year.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
just
you.
sorry, just clarification on that. It would most likely be, from my understanding, closer to summertime before we'll really see the results of their what is it called? Their, forgetting the word.
pilot project.
Their pilot project. So I think during our meeting when discussed, we were saying that it was probably late spring, early summer before we really see the results of that.
That's perfect. At least we have an idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 2021. Wait a minute, did I miss one?
Mayor Bondi, we didn't get a motion on that, on the committee matter.
Oh, okay. Moved by Deputy Mayor Malash, support Councillor Reno, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. 2021 third quarter property tax write-offs. Mr. Longworth.
I'm available for any questions. The write-offs for this quarter were minimal. If there is any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I like to see that when they're minimal, Mr. Langlois. Thank you. Council's pleasure. Moved by Deputy Mayor Malash, support by Councillor Reno. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. 2021 third quarter report. Mr. Longworth.
There hasn't been a lot of change since the second quarter report, but it is nice to see some of the Vollmer Center revenues starting to get back to normal levels, specifically the arenas. So that deficit should not grow in as large a fashion as it has in previous quarters. But if there are any questions on any other items in the report, I'd be happy to answer.
Councillor Carrick.
Just to follow up, Dale, so other municipalities are struggling with a deficit as a result. So we're pretty on par with what you're telling us, as opposed to not losing as much as we thought we might, or we're in good shape moving forward, is the question.
Moving forward, we're in good shape. We aren't perfect by any means. We aren't at full capacity. For example, our gym memberships and whatnot are not at the levels they were before COVID, but over time, we are going to reduce the deficit. Again, just going back to the 2021 budget, we kept the revenue figures the same, and we are going to continue to do so for the 2022 budget because this is an abnormal situation we're in. And we'll see what 2022 brings. Hopefully, we continue to dig ourselves out of this deficit for the 2023 budget.
So, okay, just to follow up then. So this upcoming budget, the impact itself, because we're just going to be getting into that like next month. So when will we get a quick heads up? How much we're actually looking?
We're keeping the budget figures the exact same as for 2021, the revenue figures, just because we do expect over time to continue to grow and get our memberships back and whatnot and get the Vollmer back up to full capacity. If there is a deficit at the end of the year, we will fund that from the tax stabilization reserve. That's used for extraordinary items such as this. But in 2021, we have received some significant government funding at the higher levels of government at the beginning of the year that will more than cover the deficit in the culture rec department.
Okay, so I guess the big picture for the budget, I just don't want to be sitting down and coming in with a crazy number that we have to try to come up with. That's all. That's the overall picture.
No, there's not the culture and rec portion of the budget is not going to have significant changes.
Yeah, things that work. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I have one. Just curious, our revenue is up, obviously. Operating fund is up. The water and the wastewater fund, we're only at over 50%. So I'm waiting. I'm sure you can explain why that's at.
That's just due to the timing of the billings. It is quarterly billings. It's not like the non-residential are monthly, but the residential are quarterly. So by the time we reach the end of the year, I'm actually expecting us to perform better, slightly better than what we've budgeted. So the transfers to the water and wastewater reserve should be a little bit higher than what we've budgeted at the end of the year.
Why the question? I always want the good news. Mr. Militia.
Just further to Councillor Carrick's question, I think, again, at the next council meeting, we'll be releasing the 2022 budget. And we are not anticipating that any revenue shortfalls as a result of the COVID pandemic are going to carry forward to 2022, which will require some significant tax impact increase. So our projected increase is going to be very similar to what we were last year. So we're not expecting any significant increases as a result of COVID or the pandemic from that perspective.
Thank you, Joe. Council's pleasure. Moved by Councillor Desjardins, support by Councillor Di Spagnolo. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Third order report on procurement.
So as part of the procurement policy that was approved by council earlier in the year, this is our quarterly report. Basically, it includes all of the purchases over $50,000. It compares it to the budget, and provides explanation if it was exceeded budget or if it varied from our policy. Be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Renault.
Dale, this is the first time this appendix has made it onto the agenda. This is it was a nice surprise to see this time.
This is the second time. I think there was one in July. It'll be quarterly going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Dale.
welcome.
Council's pleasure. Moved by Deputy Mayor Malosh, support by Councillor Carrick. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Correspondence regarding call for nominations for the 2022-2023 Good Roads Board of Directors.
I'll move to receive.
Moved by Councillor Renault, support by Councillor Di Spagnolo. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Summary of reports to council. Motion to receive, Deputy Mayor Malosh and Councillor Carrick. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Bylaws. All four bylaws, all three readings, moved by Councillor Di Spagnolo and Councillor Michael Akpata. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Council questions. Councillor Carrick, Councillor Di Spagnolo, and Councillor Desjardins.
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually have two.
Okay.
So the first one is that I'd like to request administration to prepare a status report on the Big Dig drainage project and recommended action items, because for lack of a better term for the Big Dig, I understand it's gone forward and we'd like a report from administration to see where we're at with that, because that's really holding up a lot of our business and it's very important. Potential flooding and everything else, that's a serious business. So whenever we can get that, that'd be much appreciated. The sooner the better. I understand there's significant timelines involved here. So I'd appreciate that. If that's okay for you to your worship, to administration.
You know what they'll tell me? They'll ask you and Councillor Desjardins to put pressure on that.
And I did that last IRCA meeting, just so you know, and they promised a certain time, or they mentioned certain timelines, but I just want our administration to follow up to make sure that they are what they say they are, so that we're not stuck behind the 8-ball.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Is that all you need, Mr. Militia?
Oh, right. Sorry. Is that good? Joe?
Is that all you need, Mr. Militia?
Yeah, we will add that to the schedule of reports. I'm just looking over to the clerk of whether do we need an emotion for that? No, we will add that to the schedule of reports and report back.
Thank you.
Okay. The second one is, yes, I chased our administrator around before, so I figured I'll bring this forward. I'd like to request administration to prepare reports, and this goes along with what we just talked about, similar, not tree maintenance, but involving trees. Reports and options available for tree planting incentive programs to encourage the planting of trees within our town. Now, I know we talked about this in the past, but I'd like to send that as a motion that our administration look at some kind of incentive program, whether it be grants or rebates, but not to developers, but more residents in their homes. If they go to buy a tree, maybe we give them some kind of a kickback. We look at something like that in order to help promote the environment. And let's face it, trees are the best way to go. So if we can do something like that, then absolutely we should be involved in that if we can. And we're not asking for crazy money, but it could be a little something. Then if we could put it back to administration for a report on that, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Mr. Mara?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, we'll come back with a wholesome report on that. It has been a topic of discussion through the Parks and Rec Committee, through to Public Works, and it was one of the items that we are planning on reporting back, because one of our neighboring municipalities has a program in place where residents can call and get trees planted on the public right-of-ways and things of that nature. So we're trying to go through what that means and how that works. And certainly some of that stuff has budget implications. So it wasn't something that we readily brought forward for the 2022 budget, but it is certainly something that we have been talking about, and it is on the radar of the Public Works group to bring that forward, and that will be something we look forward to bringing forward in 2022, ultimately budgeting for that stuff into 2023.
Okay, so that's great. I'm looking kind of more toward the personal homeowner, that we have some kind of rebate if they buy a tree and they planted or 1 or 2 trees, they get a certain percentage, they can get like a bit of a kickback from the town as incentive to plant trees on their own property. So that's a little bit different than public right of ways. And I kind of want to look at something like that. That's not doing nothing significant, but enough that would help so that we can help promote the environment without costing the taxpayers too much money. If that's what I'm looking for.
Certainly, we'll add that type of review and section to the what we plan on looking at for town property as well.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Licio Spagnolo.
Thank you. Through you, I believe this question would go to Mrs. Finaro. Just wondering, I've had some families reach out to me at the Valmer, and they are asking when our concession stands will be open, as they have traveled to other arenas and some are open. So they were just inquiring to see if the Valmer's concession stand will be open anytime soon.
Thank you for the question. At this point, there are no plans to reopen the concession. We're still working through the department head level on all of the reopening plans, including beyond the Valmer and for Town Hall. And the concession was not one of the areas that we had considered at this point. We are discouraging people from food and drink in the building just because we do want spectators to continue to be masked, or those that are not participating in activities. But that's certainly something we can take a look at and see. If council wishes to open it sooner, we can take a look at what would be required to do so.
Thank you.
Councillor Desjardins.
Thank you. Through you, I'm not sure if this would be, probably it's Joe. Back in August, we had asked for a report from Essex Power about the outages, and they were going to come to council with a report, and I haven't seen one, and I'm wondering if we've got a date. We do seem to be going through a lot of flickers of hydro, just enough that you've got to go around and change the clocks and you know, set the microwave and everything up. And I know we've got a lot of unhappy residents about that. And I'm just wondering if we can have someone from Essex Power, please make a report that we can get back to our residents and let them know what's going on.
Certainly we can do that. I've been in correspondence with Mr. Burrill from Essex Power Lines. He's the general manager there. So we will coordinate a time where he will attend. He's more than willing to do that. That's not a problem at all. We're just trying to coordinate some scheduling. That's all.
Okay, I just didn't want it to kind of get lost. Okay, that's all I have tonight.
Okay, any other council questions? Statements by council members. Councillor Akpata and then Councillor Licio Spagnolo.
Thank you, Your Worship. I remind all residents of the municipality that Remembrance Day is November 11th, and it's the 100th anniversary of the poppy in our community. And I know you said at Your Worship that residents are welcome to attend as long as they're masked. We respect the veterans, the senior veterans that are going to be there. And I ask everyone, if possible, to come, as it is a celebration of what we have in this community and what we have in this country. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Akpata. Councillor Licio Spagnolo.
Thank you. Through you, I just wanted to thank Peter Mara and the Public Works Department for addressing my request of putting an accessible bench in Brink B at the Valmer. It was done very quickly, and it's very much appreciated by myself as well as the residents of LaSalle. So thank you.
I will throw kudos out there, Councillor Licio Spagnolo, because I was in the arena and I was talking to Scott and Owen, and I said, "When are you doing it?" He said, "It's done." And I think it was done within 2 days. So spot on. We have a great team, LaSalle, for sure.
Thank you.
Any reports from committees? Notices of motion. Confirmatory bylaws. First reading. Councillor Licio Spagnolo and Councillor Desjardins. All in favor? That carries. Second reading. Councillor Reno and Councillor Akpata. All in favor? That carries. Third and final reading, Councillor Carrick and Deputy Mayor Malash. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. You have your schedule of meetings. Everyone have a great night. Thank you, audience who viewed us on YouTube, and stay well, stay safe.